Good morning.
Shalom Aleichem. Okay, so you could see the Gemara on the screen.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for joining everybody from Dovi and Mike and Mr. Nadich and Mr. Karp. And of course, so Mr. Minsky and Reb Label. So we are holding here in the Gemara in Masechta Megillah. You ever heard of a Megillah? A long Megillah. Tezvav Amud Aleph, 15a. And we're going to have now 5 statements in the Gemara, all saying Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina. Says Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Chanina. And it's not the end of davening. In davening, we have another different statement of Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina. But the Gemara many times does this, that it will bring a statement. If you have a statement of a certain Tana in the name of another Tana, or an Amira in the name of an Amira, and there's a statement which will not otherwise be stated in Shas, so they bring it over there. It's not an ironclad rule. Sometimes they'll bring it, sometimes there's reasoning. And many times, like including this Gemara, there is a connection between the statements one to the other. So the first statement we had was, says Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Chanina, that when it says in the Megillah, Vatilbash Esther Malchus, and Esther put on royal garments, royalty, doesn't say she put on royal garments, rather it says she put on royalty. She put herself in a situation, in a way where she's ready to be a conduit for the royalty of Hashem, meaning that she had Ruach HaKodesh, she had prophecy. So now we're going to have the next statement of Amar Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina, says Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Al tihi birchas hedyot kal beinecha. The blessing of a simple person should never regard it as light. I mean, if a simple person gives you a bracha, don't regard it as a light thing. When we sit with the Rashba over here, points out that the word simple doesn't mean a simpleton. Rather, it means whenever the Shas mentions the word hedyot, it means somebody who's not on the same level, strata as his friend. For example, you have a kohen hedyot and a kohen gadol, a simple kohen and the big kohen. The kohen gadol is a chief kohen. Compared to him, all the other kohanim are hedyotos. Are the simple Kohen. Doesn't mean they're simpletons, it just means simpler than the Kohen Gadol.
That's why he's much more restricted. Whereas who can bear it is the Kohen Gadol.
Right. The Moreh Masada, as an Achron, he writes that here, Hedyot is going on a non-Jew as well. Even a non-Jew, if they give you a blessing, you shouldn't take it just as brush it off as a light thing. Take it as a serious thing. And the Gemara will bring 2 examples about 2 hedyotas, 2 people which were seemingly simple people, or simple in comparison to the other person, and they gave a bracha, a blessing, and the blessing was fulfilled. What are the 2 examples? Sharei, Shnei Gedolei Hadar. There were 2 Gedolei Hadar, greatest people of their respective generations. Berchum Shnei Hedyotis, they were blessed by 2 people who in comparison to them were considered to be ordinary people. Viniskaima behen, and the blessings of the ordinary people were fulfilled in the great people of the generation. V'eluhen, these are the 2 great people. David v'Daniel. The 2 great people were David HaMelech, King David, and Daniel in the lion's den. So first, we're going to go through both stories. Gemara says, David, what blessing did David receive? David was the greatest person in his generation, and he was blessed. Baruchei Aravna. Aravna blessed him. D'chsiv, as it is written, and I'll bring the story inside. The story is David, there was a plague among the Jewish people, and every single day, 100 Jews were dying. And David HaMelech asked Kohen Gadol what he should do, and two things that he did. One of them was to institute a decree among the Jewish people that everyone should make 100 brachas, 100 blessings a day. And the other thing he did, he told him, was to bring a karban in Garden Arnon Hayevusi, in the silo of Aravna Hayevusi. Aravna, he was a king of a place called Metzudat Zion. Zion, the city in where Yerushalayim is, ancient Jerusalem. And he was called Hayevusi. He wasn't one of the 7 nations of Canaan is Yevusi. He wasn't actually Yevusi. He was actually a grandson of Avimelech, the Plishtim, the Philistines. And they were living in Yerushalayim for many generations, from the time that the Yidden conquered Yerushalayim. And this Aravna was a Ger Toshav, meaning he kept the 7 mitzvahs of Noach. He didn't believe in idols. He was someone who was paying taxes to the Jewish king. And he had a silo in the heart of Yerushalayim, where he would store his grain. David HaMelech wanted to buy that place in order to make a mizbeach, an altar over there to bring a carbon to Hashem. And in the future, he wanted that the Beis HaMikdash should be built in the place of the silo of Aravna, Hayevusi. So David goes to Aravna, and he says, I want to buy this silo off of you. Aravna tells the king, you're the great king of the Jewish people of the whole land. I'm not going to sell it to you. I want to give it to you for free as a gift. And David refused. And he ended up paying Aravna the full money. So if we look at the pasuk inside, Aravna looked and he saw Hamelech v'avadav, the king and his servants going in front of him. Aravna went in front of him. Aravna says, my master the king, why have you come to your servant? David says, Liknos v'imchas hagarden, I want to buy the threshing floor from you. Livnos mizbeach laHashem, to build an altar to Hashem. V'tiyatzar magefa me'al, and let the plague stop from the Jewish people. Aravna told the king, please, my king, let it be a gift from you. And Aravna, and the king told back to Aravna, no, I will buy it from you b'mechir, for the full price. I will not bring the carbon to Hashem in a place where it was free. I'm only going to bring it in a place where I paid money. David as a garden, and David bought the threshing floor, Besa Bakar, and all the oxen there, Bekesef Shkal Chamishim, with 50 silver shekel. Pasuk Samach, verse 60. No, sorry, not Pasuk. Pasuk Gimel says, "Vayomer Ravna lamelech." Ravna told the king, "Hashem elekecha yirtzecha." May Hashem, your God, accept you. May He accept what you're doing and stop the plague. So David bought the threshing floor for 600 shekel. It says over here he bought it for 50 shekel. In Divrei Yamim it says that he bought it for 600 shekel. Here it says he bought it for 50 shekel. So the answer that's given is that he collected 50 shekel from every single tribe, every shevet. There's 12 tribes, each one gave 50 shekel. So therefore altogether were 600 shekel. And that's he wanted every single shevet, every tribe, to have a portion in buying the Beis HaMikdash, in buying the Garden Aravna, the area where the Beis HaMikdash will be built. Some say that he bought the land, the place of the Mizbeach, for 50 shekel, and the area around it and the oxen, he paid another 600 shekel. But we see Aravna bless the king, that Hashem Elekecha Yirtzecha, may Hashem, your God, may He accept you, whatever you're asking for. And David was asking that the plague should stop. And because Hashem blessed him, because Aravna blessed him, his blessing was fulfilled. As it says right afterwards, Vaye'aser Hashem la'aretz, and Hashem accepted the prayers for the land. Vati'atzar magefa me'al Yisrael, and the plague stopped from the Jewish people. And so the fact that the Torah says Torah has to bring in the blessing of Aravna shows you that the blessing of Aravna was a catalyst for making the plague stop. So somebody who's ordinary in comparison to David, Aravna Hayevusi, who was not Jewish, was a Ger Toshav, and he gave a blessing to David that the plague should stop, and the plague stopped. Daniel, the second one is Daniel, famous Daniel in the lion's den.
So we are to understand that a hedgehog can be a non-Jew?
Correct. Even a non-Jew. That's what the Meroy Mesada writes at. Even a non-Jew. And it's not such a, I think, such a wonder, because even to Avraham Avinu, it says, Avarcha mevarechecha, I will bless those who bless you, meaning the nations of the world. The Meroy Mesada writes that even a non-Jew, the Hedyot here could mean a non-Jew as well. And the next, at least Aravna Yevusi, you could say he's maybe a Ger Toshav, partly Jewish. But the next example of Daniel, where Daryavish, King Darius blessed him, he was not Jewish at all.
And he was a pagan too, I think, right?
Yeah, he served idols. Daniel, the Barche Daryavish, Darius the king gave him a blessing. The Chsiv, as it is written, the famous story of Daniel, that Daniel, he was brought from, as a young child already by Nebuchadnezzar into Bavel, and he had a very long, we were mentioning him a lot in Megillah now, with being that he's a Sach and he's buried, according to at least some traditions, over there in Shushan. And so by the King Darius, he loved Daniel very much. It was known that he 3 times a day he would bow down and pray in his room towards Yerushalayim. And the king's other advisors were very jealous of Daniel, and so they convinced the king to make a decree that no one is allowed to bow down to anybody but the king, and no one could pray to anyone but the king, but Daryavish. And he accepted it, not realizing he was being led. And then they come over to him and tell him, "Oh, your favorite person, Daniel, is bowing towards Yerushalayim." Daniel was not afraid. Every day he would daven to Hashem. So Daniel's bowing down to Yerushalayim, and the punishment, they said, anybody who's bowing to anybody but the king should be thrown into a lion's den. Daryavish felt very badly about this, he tried getting out of it, but a decree is a decree. So he told Daniel like this. Let's bring it up on the screen. He tells Daniel, Ba'adain, the king Balka, Amar, the king commanded Daniel, and he said, the Hayisir Daniel, they brought Daniel, the Ramu Lagaba di Aryavasa, they threw Daniel into the lion's den. Ani Malkav Amar Daniel, the king Darius spoke and told Daniel, Elakach the Antpalachla, the God whom you serve, Bitadira constantly, who Yeshayz Vinach, he should save you. Shezava, we say that in some the Sardim saying Kaddish, Shezava. So the God which you bow down to, which you serve constantly, should save you. And we all know what happened to Daniel. He was lowered into the lion's den, and he was saved. Nothing happened to him. Right? 3 days later, they came to the den in the morning. They came to the den of the lions. They unsealed it, and they see Daniel is there, totally fine. And Hashem saved him from the lions, from the hungry lions. So the blessing of Daryavish, the king, who in comparison to Daniel is ordinary, was fulfilled. Hashem, who you constantly pray to, should save you. And this was fulfilled, that Daniel was saved from the lion's den. Familiar with the Rogachover Gaon?
Yes.
The Rogachover Gaon. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Rogachover Gaon. We brought him down once or twice. He passed away in the late 1930s. He was a tremendous Gaon, a scholar of like unmatched parallel in many generations, I would say, not just in one. Who am I to judge? But he would have long hair. This is some pictures of the Rogachover. Chaver, like a Nazir. He was told by Tzemach Tzedek as a child to grow his hair long. He would have a very special way of learning that he would almost not even look at the Achronim, only look at the Rishonim. And he literally learned day and night and day. He didn't sleep, he didn't take care of himself. He wrote extremely short. There's many stories of the Raga Chaver, but he was also very sharp, very witty and very sharp to the point. And like, for example, one time somebody brought him a sefer, a book, and he says, and he wants to show off to the Raga Chaver, and he knows that the Raga Chaver would dismiss any sefer that comes in front of him very quickly. So he brought it to the Raga Chaver Gain. The Raga Chaver looks at it and says, "Wow, this is a chiddush." He's so proud of himself. Wow, what did you find out in the book? And he says, "I found out that there's a print that it says in the beginning, the book is printed in Zhitomir. I never knew there was a printing house in Zhitomir." So the Raga Chaver Gain, one time somebody came over to him and asked for a bracha. And he would say, "I'm not a Rebbe, I don't give brachas." So the person wanted to show what a lamdani is. And he says, it says in the Gemara, Al te birchas hedyot kal beinecha. A blessing of an ordinary person should not be a light manner, a light thing in your eyes. So I can make a kal v'chomer. If a simple person's blessing is considered to be something important, for sure the blessing of the Raga Chaver Gaon, for sure your blessing, your bracha would be something very unique. So Raga Chaver Gaon answered him back, why don't you give me a bracha without the kal v'chomer, without the whole thought process and with extrapolation, and you give me a bracha. Meaning you're the ordinary person. Let's do the next Gemara, and we'll see a very interesting thing that the Chinuch writes about this. Furthermore, Rabbi Lazar says in the name of Rabbi Chanina.
Excuse me, can just for 1 second to go back?
Sure.
What was Daryavish's blessing to Daniel? It was he's the one that put him in the lion's den. Right. So he was saying, he was taunting. He wasn't giving him a bracha per se. He was really teasing him. Let Hashem save you. It wasn't like he was blessing him that Hashem is to save you. It was like saying, it's not going to happen. Right?
No, it was the advisors of the king who were pressuring Daryavish that he must throw Daniel into the lion's den. He himself didn't want to do it.
Okay.
But he was like being coerced, being forced by his other advisors. Well, what will it look like if the king goes against his own decree?
Look how it's translated over here. It says, your God whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. So that it's interpreting it as a bracha from the king, on how they translate it.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So he was actually a friend of Daniel, but so Oid Amar Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Chanina, says Rabbi Lazar in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Al tehei killas hedyot kal beinecha. The curse of a ordinary person should never be light in your eyes. So important never to curse anybody. Sharei. Shnei Deile Hadar, there were two great people in a generation. Berchum Shnei Herdyotis, and then two ordinary people in comparison to them in their generation blessed them. V'niskayma behen, and the blessing, and the curse them, and the curse became fulfilled. V'eluhein, so be careful from the curse even of a simple person. Obviously, for sure, nowadays we know that there's no such thing as a simple Jew. Every Jew is important. Additionally, many times there are simple Jews who are actually great hidden tzaddikim. There was Simchas Torah, I think of the year Tafshin Mem Hey or Mem Vav. The Rebbe said after the Simchas Torah Farbrengen, about how every Jew is a tzad, every Jew is a part of Hashem, and therefore that part of Hashem is the one that's dominant, and therefore you have the power to bless another Jew, and therefore everyone should give a bracha to their fellow. Every single person should give a bracha to their fellow Jew. So between the Farbrengen of the Rebbe on Simchas Torah and Rasi Shalom Aleichem, between the Farbrengen of the Rebbe and the Hakafas was a short break, half an hour to an hour. People in the Kiddush then, but everybody was outside on Eastern Parkway, and you could see thousands of Yidden, the Chassidim, all giving a bracha, running to each other. I'll give you a bracha for this and this and this, and everyone giving a bracha to the other one. So it was a beautiful sight to see. So he says the blessing of an ordinary person should be very significant, should not be light, and the curse of an ordinary person should not be light in your eyes as well. Sharei, Avimelech, Hillel, Sarah. Avimelech was a king of the Philistines, and he cursed Sarah. He couched it in positive terms, but he was upset when Avram went to the land of Plishtim. There was a hunger in Eretz Yisrael, so he went to the land of the Philistines. There'll be area of today where approximately where Gaza is. And so he told his wife, Sarah, when he's coming to the city, everyone's asking, is this your wife or your sister? He realized when people come to town, it's not usually the first question you get. The people here have not good intentions. So he told Sarah, hide the fact that you're married to me, because people might kill me in order to grab you. And what happens is, Avimelech, the king of Plishtim, his messengers asked Avram, is she your wife? And she said, no, she's my sister. And then Avimelech took her to marry her. And then Hashem would not let Avimelech touch her. And an angel went and he stopped up the appendages of every single person in the household of Avimelech. And every single person in Avimelech's house was punished, and he had a dream by night that Hashem came to Avimelech. He must have been someone more important than Parai. Parai told him, leave my nation. And Parai, Hashem did not come to him. But Avimelech, Hashem came to him in a dream and told him, don't touch Sarah, she's married. And so then Avimelech comes to Avram and says, why do you lie to me? Why do you tell me that she's your sister? And Hashem punished my entire household because of you. So here, I'm going to give you many, many gifts. The gifts are, I'm giving 1,000 silver coins to your brother. It should be eksus einayim. It should be a covering for the eyes. Veskov nechachas, and to everyone that is with you. So he says it should be basically bribery, should appease you that I abducted Sarah. However, the term that he uses is hinehu lach ksus einayim. It should be for you a covering of the eyes. Meaning that he was giving her, because you lied to me, you covered my eyes and you lied to me, saying that Sarah is your sister, not your wife. Therefore, you should be cursed, and your eyes should be covered as well. And miniskayim bezara. And it was fulfilled by her descendants, by her son. Who was Sarah's son? Yitzchak. And it says, Vayhi ki zaken Yitzchak, and it came to pass when Yitzchak became old, that tichena einav, and his eyes became dim, and he was not able to see anymore. It says it happened from the smoke of Esav's wives. They were burning incense to idols. Yitzchak, being so holy, could not handle it. Great tzaddikim, like a Maggid Mizrich, was so holy. One time, a woman walked in. There was a noble woman in the area with her husband, and they walked into the Maggid Mizrich because they heard all about him. She was wearing a little bit of a not sneeze outfit on, and the Maggid of Mizrich saw it, and right away he vomited. He threw up. It was so vile to him. That's how holy he was. So Yitzchak, when Esav's wives were burning incense to idols, so it affected him that he couldn't see anymore. And of course, this is a positive reason that Yaakov should get the blessings. But it all started from the words of Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, telling Hinehu lach ksus einayim. Just like you pulled the wool over my eyes, so your descendants also won't be able to see anymore. And he's saying Yirasin, he's saying that your descendants should also be Ksuyinayim, people who the wool is pulled over their eyes, which is that they weren't able to see. So it didn't happen with Sarah, being that she was such a tzaddikus, but it happened with their children. It's very important only to say positive things about Jews, about everybody, and not to say anything negative, because words can have a very big effect. The Chinuch writes over here, I don't get it. Anybody could say something about anybody else and affect them, make it good, make them not good. Like, how does it work? So he explains is that you can't say that you are introducing something that wasn't there. But every person inside of them has a very strong potential. And they have koiches, powers that are inside of them, that are hidden. And if you give someone a bracha, a blessing, you're bringing out those hidden powers, those koiches, those hidden talents that they have inside. If you give them a kola, a curse, you're bringing out the negativity that's inside of them. So there's a story, probably true, but the idea is the same. The idea is real. There was once a teacher that she got a list in the beginning of the year of her 6th grade class of all their IQ numbers. She looked at the IQ numbers and wow, this class is a brilliant class. So that year she really, really invested in the class. She did high level projects and the class really, she enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. They did a very great year. At the end of the year, she looked at the list again and she realized what it says on top, locker numbers, right? Locker numbers. The list that she got wasn't their IQs, it was locker numbers of the students. Mm-hmm. But she invested so much in them over the year, and they in turn were reciprocated and gained very much.
Well, there are hidden talent sections. There's a case of a man who had fallen, beat his head. He was brought home actually to his mother, was brought to the hospital, he recovered quickly, and he suddenly became a great pianist. There was apparently hidden in his hand
the ability.
He needed to hurt his head in order to have it come out.
Right. So to say that a person blessing someone else or cursing somebody else is you're bringing out the good of the person. You're bringing out the not good of the person. And every single person, we're made in the image of Hashem, has immense koiches, immense abilities, immense talents. And therefore, all you have to do to bring it out is to bless the person, give a bracha to the person. So it's very important to always do whatever you could. Like the Rebbe says, how every single Jew, you have the opportunity to give a bracha to a Jew, you should do it. And the brachas, the blessings you give to a Jew, definitely could or will be fulfilled. Right. We're going to move on now to Kunteras Umayan. Page 317. We're near the end of chapter 2 in Maimer 22. It's page 317. And big one's an English one, page 317. V'yadua uk'shem shelamata yesh guf v'nefesh. Continuing in the theme, how every single thing in the world has a spiritual source. But there's a difference in two methods of creation. One is called yesh mi'ayin, and one is called ila ve'alol. Ila ve'alol means cause and effect. Right. If you eat lots of sugar, you're going to gain weight. Right. That's ila ve'alol. And yesh mi'ayin is I somehow lost all this weight, even though I'm eating all this sugar. Ila va'alol is when you could trace back the thing that happened to where it came from. Yesh mi'ayin is you can't trace it back, the thing that happened. Because it's so far removed from its source that you can't trace it back. The only way it was is when the source was totally hidden, and then you came out the effect, the thing that happened from it. but there's no comparison between the cause and the effect, the creator and the created being. So from spiritual to spiritual, anything non-physical could be done in a way of ila ve'alul, cause and effect. You want to do something. Let's say I want to build a house. As a result of wanting to build a house, I thought about it. I want a place to live. I thought about building a house. I got excited about doing it. I went ahead and drew up the plans. All this is ila ve'alul. I spoke about it. I'm just revealing what came before it is thinking about doing, or what had in it hidden. Yesh me'ayin is when you're creating something from nothing. When you're creating physical, there's no way that the physical thing can ever be traced back to its source. I decided to make this red, and I could think about it and I want this parichas now to turn green. It's not going to happen as much as I think about it. Right? My thoughts don't have the capability to do it. So, in a similar sense, to create this world, anything physical happens through what's called yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Ayin means when Hashem's godliness is concealed to the extent that whatever comes after it cannot be traced back to the thing before it. Kashem shelamata yesh guf nefesh, v'nefesh hu b'derech ishtalshelus, v'gufu b'derech bria yesh me'ayin. You have a body and you have a soul in this world. And the soul comes from, we said, the Pinei Adam Sher Merkava, the face of the man, Adam Elyon, the Super Hashem. And the bodies of physical things in the world come, B'derech Bria Yesh Me'ayin, in a way it's called Yesh Me'ayin, ex nihilo, something from nothing. K'moikeinu b'dugma kazois l'mayla gamkein. In the higher worlds, you have a similar idea as well. For example, angels. Have you ever seen an angel?
Yep.
No. Angels also have a body and a soul. They're not only purely spiritual, they have a body as well. When Shekasav HaRamban, as the Ramban writes, the Mashakasav Asa Malacha Asa Malacha Bruchas Mishars of Eshloyet Hainu Gufas Hamalachim Shehein Misaida Esh V'Ruach. It states Hashem made the angels Ruchas with winds, and Misharsav and those who serve Hashem, the other angels, are Esh Loyet, burning fire. The angels have a body. We are made out of 4 components: Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afer, 4 elements: water, fire, earth, and air, gas, which is gas, solid, liquid, and energy. And Malachim, angels, are only Eish, Ruach. You can say gas and energy. Those 2 things together. Now, what that means, if it means in a physical sense, at least on some malachim, but other malachim have this element of fire and wind in a more spiritual sense. But nimza yesh behen guf v'nefesh. They also have the idea of a body and a soul. In other aspects of creation, we have a body and a soul as well. V'chein be'eser sfiras sheba'olamus biyah. You have also in the 10 spheres, 3 lower worlds are made up of what's called Erdis V'Kelim, lights and vessels. It's a term used in Chassidus a lot called Erdis and Kelim. In Kabbalah, they use a different term. They use a term called Shefa and I think Mekabel, like Mashpia Mekabel, the giver and the receiver. Here in Chassidus, it gives a term Erdis V'Kelim, lights and vessels, because Hashpa, when you're giving from you, mashpia, is if, let's say, I have $100 and I give you 50, I'm left with 50 and you have 50. When I'm giving light, a candle, an energy, so I'm giving you light. Let's say that I'm a light bulb and I'm shining, so you're receiving light from me, but no light is missing from the original source. If you have a candle, the same thing. The fire could go and you could take fire from me without actually losing anything of my, detracting anything from the original fire. And Chassidus, which explains at length the idea of Ishtalshalus, how Hashem goes down a chain-like progression through the worlds, and the worlds go down, right, further and further. So to have, but in order not to think that any of the creation makes any difference in the infiniteness of Hashem, one of the main ideas of the Alter Rebbe and Chabad, and in general Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov, is that Tzimtzum Lav Kipshutai. Right? Hashem's light, the physical world, we have the same light of Hashem as it was before creation, just that it's hidden. But in essence, if we could have open eyes, if we were able to see on a deeper level, we would see how the entire world is godliness. Right? It's called Tzimtzum Lav Kipshutai, and the Gra was a big Mekubal. He held it Tzimtzum Kipshutai. I'm not sure exactly the parameters of that shita. I'm not sure exactly the details of that opinion, but he held that that it's a more literal type of concealment of Hashem. And this was one of the great, you could say, disagreements, you could say, between the original, the Chassidim and the opponents of Chassidim. Nowadays, if you ask someone who's an opponent of Chabad or Chassidus, and you ask him, what's your problem? I don't think they're going to tell you Tzimtzum Kipshutai or Tzimtzum Lav Kipshutai. Is concealment literal or not literal? I don't think that's the issue. Meaning, the reasons for snagness, the reasons for opposition are not really there anymore. The original reasons of opposition, at least. So, Or and Keli, you have what's called a light and a recipient. The light, which is called the Oiris, the Mashpia, the givers, the Shefa, and the Mikabel is called the Kalim, the recipients of the light of Hashem. And in a similar sense, the lights, what's given, the spirit, is like the soul of every single one of the 10 spheres of all the worlds. So every one of these spheres are made up of Oiris and Kalim, lights and recipients, meaning you have the body of it and you have the spirit of it. Shakalim deser spheres debia hemichinas nivra. It's called the vessels of the lower three worlds are considered to be the creations of the body of the worlds. The nivru bederech yesh me'ayin mibechinas haneshama shalahem, and they are created in a state where they're almost something from nothing. Meaning, if you compare, I'm not going to say the physical, but compare the receptacle part of every one of the spheres to the light where it comes from, you can't compare the two. They have no comparison. It's like a body to a soul. The imkain gam sham b'chinas hanefesh she neshama b'derech hashtalshalos ila v'alo b'chinas hakelim koshkin elavushn eicholos from malachin shchol olam savusam b'derech bria nishme'ayin. So every single component of all these worlds, Atzilas, Bria, Tzira, Asiya, every component, it has absolutely no comparison and cannot be traced back, and no even similarities to the essence of where it came from. So when they're created in a way of called yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. The Oiris, you have the lights of the lights, meaning the energy, the spirit, or the shefa, what's given to them, that is from Hashem himself. That's Ilav Ol, that is created from Hashem in a way of cause and effect. But the components, the recipients, the mechanics sort of how it works is considered to be the body of the higher spheres of the higher worlds. All these examples that we gave, whether it's in animals, people, in the 10 spheres, in angels, all these things that we're bringing here to say how it's a body and a soul are all examples to say that there's two different ways of creation. There's Ilav Olo, cause and effect, and Yesh Me'ayin, something from nothing, where you don't see any connection between the cause and the effect. All this is out to explain our original theme that we're talking about. What happens on Rosh Hashanah when we're judging Rosh Hashanah? What happens during the judgment of every single day? So according to what we said, and all the examples that were given to bring out the idea that there's a body and a soul, and they're different. This is what we said before. The chesed Atzilus, the chesed of the world, the kindness of the world of Atzilus. Shekollel Shorshe bechinas chesed de'asiya v'hashpayis habayis mizeh. We say that it is the source of any goodness which a person will receive in this physical world. And the way it comes down is only in a way of ishtalshelus, a chain-like progression, meaning where you could connect A to B and B to C. All this is when you're talking from the viewpoint of the light, the vitality, sort of the spiritual aspect of all the worlds. Say the spirit, the soul of the worlds, it was what comes down from the chesed of Atzilus. But the vessels, meaning the more tangible and the more definable aspects, which are called the levushim, the garments, the clothes of a person are not connected to the person. I mean, not since Adam Harishon. Adam Harishon, Hashem made him clothes that are connected to them. Animals don't have clothes. The clothes are connected to them. They're part of them. Their fur, that's a part of them. And if you want to dress them up with a fancy costume just to make yourself happy, but it's not their natural clothes.
The dogs, what do they have?
They have many things, right? By a person, their clothes are not connected. They're not part of them. People are very unique in this regard. In general, you have it's called the kelim are one with the iris. The receptacles, right, are a proper way, are able to receive what's given to it. We're going to learn tomorrow in the Gemara how Hashem makes a world the opposite way that people make the world. By a person, you have a pot, like Gemara is going to say, let's say a cup, and you put liquid in the cup. By Hashem, it's opposite. He has a liquid, and then he puts a cup around the liquid. The liquid is going to be there, a matter floating, and then he puts it around it. Meaning that every single receptacle is designed for what's given to it. This cup is not a very good receptacle to hold compressed air. It's not going to do a very good job of it. And so on. Levushim, garments, are separate, are nifred from its source. This is Sefer Lakutim from Tzemach Tzedek brings this idea. So we're saying over here that in all the worlds, you have kelim, you have receptacles, but then you have levushim, as he brings down over here. Levushim are garments of the three lower worlds, Bria, Tzira, Sira, Derech Bria Yesh Me'ayin. So that is not in any way compared to the source where it comes from. Person's skin, I understand it comes from the body. A person without any clothes, could they suddenly grow clothes on them? No. The clothes, in comparison to the person's own ability to produce naturally, so not making it, but to produce, is in a way of yesh me'ayin, something which has no connection to the person. In a similar sense, in the lower worlds of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, and invention for sure in the Asiya, Gashmis, in the physical world, anything which comes down, anything physical or anything tangible, anything that you could define, comes down in a way of yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Something which is a kli, a receptacle, it's possible could be misached, become one with the light. But a levush cannot become one with the light. A garment cannot become one with the thing which is given to it. So Kitzer, the summary. HaChesed sheniksav Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's determined how much chesed, kindness, and goodness a person will receive throughout the year. Now, that's which is decided in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not a physical thing. Rather, it is Sharshei Chesed Asiyah. It is a source of the kindness and the goodness a person will receive in the lowest world of Asiyah. Shekolol b'malchus Atzilus, which is included in Malchus of the world of Atzilus. So even when it's in the highest world of Atzilus, it has some type of connection formed to the way it will be in the lower worlds. What is the judgment that takes place every single day? And he explains, B'chol nivra yesh guf nefesh. Every creature has a body and a soul. And we went through several examples. We said angels, we said people, we said the spheres, every single one of the spheres in the world, of all the worlds, they have a body and a soul. A nefesh shavusay b'derech hashtalshelus. The soul is created in a way of a chain-like progression, meaning you're able to connect the dots, A to B, B to C. So the soul comes from Hashem, hasn't really transformed much, and the soul of every living being comes from a spiritual source of that world. That guf, but the component, the physical component, or the lower component of every world, is avusa b'derech b'rei yeshma'ayin. The way it's created is yeshma'ayin. You have the something from nothing. You have a very etzem, the essence of Hashem is there. Kenu b'eser spheres b'eres v'kelim. So too it is in 10 spheres, and the 10 spheres, and in the kelim as well. You have the same idea, and being that it's spiritual, we're going to learn in the next sif, in the next paragraph. Being that it's spiritual, and being that the natural journey is from spiritual to spiritual, ilo me'alo, and to go from spiritual to physical is a non-natural journey. So therefore, there's nothing compelling by itself for any of the spiritual, the chesed, the kindness of the world of Atzilus, to come down to be in a physical sense, to become a physical thing. In order for it to become physical, that's why we have a judgment every single day. So the Yesh Me'ayin stage, you can say the bigger jump, that takes place every single day. And that's Yesh Me'ayin. The smaller jump, so to speak, the Ila Ve'alol, that the soul, what could come down, that takes place on Rosh Hashanah, and whatever does not come down stays spiritual. So even if it's decided in Rosh Hashanah, if it's not decided on that on any given day, that this day you should receive in a physical sense, it will stay what it was, spiritual. And you'll get it in Olam Haba, in the world to come, but it could stay spiritual and not necessarily does it have to become physical. And therefore, we'll say, according to the different opinions of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Nassan, and the Chachamim, of how often a person is judged, once a year, once a day, or once an hour, and to fit it in all of these opinions. So we'll pause over here, being as we finished this parak, and now we're holding chapter 3.